popular American half-Ghanaian businesswoman and author, STACY AMEWOYI, reviews the history behind our sufferings as published by MontyOZ.com. The history behind our sufferings, Part 2. In Part 1, I have explained that God's creation started in Africa, not Europe. The Garden of Eden was created in Africa, Ethiopia. God created the first man in Africa, Genesis 2:7-14. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden was the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A river watering the garden flowed from Eden. From there it was separated into 4 headwaters. The name of the first is the Persian. It winds through the entire land of Havilah, where there is gold. See, the gold of that land is good. Aromatic resin and onyx are also there. The name of the second river is Gihon. It winds through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris. It runs along the east side of Asher. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. This verse tells you that the first man on earth was a black man, not a white man. Genesis 1:26. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." This means God created all races in his image. Also in Part 1, I stated how white people came to this world through Isaac and Rebekah. They had a twin. Jacob, the younger child, was black, and Esau, the elder child, was white. If you ever heard the story of Jacob and Esau, where Jacob deceived his elder brother and took his position as the elder son, this created enmity between the two brothers, and they hated each other until Jacob relocated to Haran and lived with his uncle Laban, their mother's brother. In the New Testament, Haran is mentioned in the book of Acts 7:2-4 in a recounting of the story in Genesis, wherein it first appears. In Genesis 28:10-19, Abraham's grandson Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. Along the way, he had his dream of Jacob's ladder. Haran in the present day is in Turkey, a village in the southeastern. Remember, Turkey is not in Europe, but the Middle East. In the ancient Middle East, they are not white, but black. In Part 1, I indicated that Esau's name was changed to Edom because Jacob gave him a food called red pottage. Edomites spread across history in the Bible and the world. They settled in the present continent called Europe, and their headquarters are in Italy, the ancient Rome. In summary, Esau's descendants are white people, and Jacob's descendants are black people. Then why are blacks suffering? Why is Africa undeveloped? Why is the Middle East under attack? Note, the Middle East was part of Africa's continent until the Roman Empire conquered the world and created the Middle East. In Roman times, Carrhae was the scene of a disastrous defeat of the Roman governor Marcus Licinius Crassus by the Parthians, and of 2 later battles between the Emperor Galerius and the Persian king Narses. The Europeans came together after the Greek Empire and planned how to colonize Africa. The leader of the Edomites was the Roman Empire. This is where the colonization of Africans started by the Edomites or Europeans. Never use any cream to bleach your skin. A white woman will never use any cream to bleach her skin. Whites created those chemicals for Africans to destroy the blacks' generation. Fearing that Esau will kill us all, Jacob places his trust in God and decides to reconsider with his brother. To do this, he first sends a series of peace offerings to Esau, hundreds of goats, sheep, camels, cows, bulls, and donkeys. That night, after dispatching these peace offerings, Jacob wrestles famously with an unnamed man, whom Jacob does not release until he is blessed and given a new name. You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with humans and have prevailed. Genesis 32:28-29. After deciding to reconcile with and pay restitution to Esau, Jacob, the supplanter, becomes Israel, the victorious, blessed, good wrestler. The next morning, Israel, limping because of his hip, injured during the night, finally meets his brother. Before greeting him, Jacob bows 7 times. Esau embraces him and they both weep. What happened next is even more astonishing. Esau initially refuses his brother's peace offerings, saying that he already has enough. Israel insists, replying, "No, please. If I find favor with you, then accept my present from my hand. For truly to see your face is like seeing the face of God." Genesis 33:10. Jacob now sees the face of God in the face of every brother who had sworn to kill him. Jacob asked Esau to take everything he has worked for, including his children. Esau pretended to reject the offer. That is the character of Europeans. His brother gave, but at the end, the offer was accepted by Esau. Esau was now controlling his brother Jacob's family and his property. Europeans or Edomites are desperate for our gold, diamond, cocoa, etc. In Deuteronomy 2:2-6, then we turned back and set out toward the wilderness along the route of the Red Sea, as the Lord had directed me. For a long time, we made our way around the hill country of Seir. Then the Lord said to me, "You have made your way around this hill country long enough. Now turn north. Give people these orders. You are about to pass through the territory of your relative, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir. They will be afraid of you, but be incredibly careful. Do not provoke them to war, for I will not give you any of their land, not even enough to put your foot on. I have given Esau the hill country of Seir as his own. You are to pay them in silver for the food you eat and the water you drink." According to the Bible commentary, the descendants of Esau were distant relatives to the people of Israel. 400 years earlier, the brother of Jacob was Esau. God did not want Israel to take the land that he gave to Esau and his descendants, the Edomites. Edom was a nickname for Esau. Perhaps the most famous Edomite in the New Testament was Herod the Great. He was hated by the Jews because he was an Edomite, but he wanted to be received and respected as a Jew. God commanded Israel to treat the Edomites with respect, even though they could have dominated them as a stronger nation. Edomites, now Europeans, settled in different locations in Europe, and God warned Moses and the Israelites against the Edomites because they were extremely dangerous, and to date, they are. Before the birth of Yeshua HaMashiach, the Edomites came together and they planned to rule the world. Like I said earlier, their leader was the Roman Empire, and to date, the Roman Empire is still ruling the world. Their agenda is to rule Africa and take our resources, and they succeeded. After the Israelites settled in Canaan, the present-day Israel, nations started to fight to control the world. The first empire was Babylon. The Babylonian Empire was the most powerful state in the ancient world after the fall of the Assyrian Empire. Its capital, Babylon, was beautifully adorned by King Nebuchadnezzar, who erected several famous buildings. Even after the Babylonian Empire had been overthrown by the Persian king Cyrus the Great, the city itself remained an important cultural center. The present name of Babylon is Iraq. After Babylonian Empire, the second empire was Medo-Persian Empire. The Persian Empire is the name given to a series of dynasties centered in modern-day Iran that spanned several centuries from the 6th century BC to the 20th century AD. The first Persian Empire, founded by Cyrus the Great around 550 BC, became one of the largest empires in history, stretching from Europe's Balkan Peninsula in the west to India's Indus Valley in the east. The third empire was the Greek Empire, led by General Alexander the Great. Later, Alexander the Great's empire was divided into 4 kingdoms: Cassander, Ptolemy, Antigonus, and Seleucus. This means after the death of Alexander the Great, his 4 generals divided the world into 4 parts. Part 3 continues. Stay tuned. STACY AMEWOYI developed a knack for writing and sharing real-life stories with the world through her first set of bestsellers, which include The Price of Love, The Language and Keys of Love, The Science of Love, The King's Choice, My True Life Story, You Only See My Beauty, You Don't Know My Story, as well as a critically acclaimed 3-part novel titled The Missing Fathers Volume 1, When All Hopes Fade Away, The Missing Fathers Volume 2, Dear Father, Read This and Come Back, The Missing Fathers Volume 3, A Time Capsule of the Globe. Watch out for her next set of books titled Africa and the African, The Rising Stars, Africa and the African, A Giant in Slumber, Africa and the African, The Fallen Powers, and existing simultaneously as allies. You can grab copies of STACY Amewoyi's books, available in hard and soft copies, as well as audiobooks on various digital platforms and ebook stores including Amazon, Walmart, Nook, Google Books, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, Audible, Goodreads, Ingram Spark, and www.stacyamfoundation.org. Proudly sponsored by the King's Choice Publishing House, Mawina Multimedia, The 360 Show with Stacy, New York Fashion Boutique, New York Beauty Supply, Stacey M Foundation, and SMA Ultimate Services.